Good afternoon, dear friends. Let us begin with the most critical developments over the past 24 hours, focusing on the Velyka Novosilka direction. Today, the majority of geolocation updates are coming from this section of the front. As a reminder, yesterday evening, Russian sources published objective control footage in which we can see Russian soldiers raising the Russian flag in the northernmost part of this settlement. In the footage, 4 Russian army soldiers are visible. 2 are raising the flag, while 2 others in the lower right corner are securing the perimeter, as there still seemed to be a possibility of a counterattack by Ukrainian forces. At the time the flag was raised, which apparently occurred on January 17th, the situation in the northern part of Vremivka had stabilized. Based on this footage, the map was updated yesterday, showing that nearly 80% of Vremivka was under Russian control. Today, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense's briefing, the entirety of Vremivka is now marked as under Russian army control. The ministry reported that, during combat operations, Vremivka was completely cleared of Ukrainian forces. Some Ukrainian units retreated north toward a fortified position between Privolnoye and Velyka Novosilka, while others, unable to retreat deeper into Ukrainian-controlled territory, withdrew eastward to the main part of Velyka Novosilka. Currently, fierce fighting is unfolding for control of Velyka Novosilka. From a military perspective, the Russian army and leadership are tasked with breaking the Ukrainian defense in Velyka Novosilka before Donald Trump's inauguration. Over the next 2 days, we are likely to see a significant number of geolocation updates and possibly further frontline adjustments in this area. Additionally, certain pro-Russian sources report that Russian units, including the 127th Division, have managed to cross the Mokrie River and enter Velyka Novosilka from the east. This crossing reportedly occurred in this area, although no objective control footage has yet been released to confirm this information. Based on aggregated reports from various sources, this is the approximate situation as of the evening of January 18th. The central part of Velyka Novosilka is now reportedly under partial control of Russian forces. There are also reports that Russian troops are launching an additional offensive from the northeast, aiming to enter the northeastern part of the settlement. The primary objective appears to be capturing farms located in the northern area, as well as small structures such as the Velyka Novosilka airfield in the northeast, according to cartographic services that have adjusted their maps accordingly. In summary, 4 offensive operations are currently underway in Velyka Novosilka. Let us review these in detail. 1. The first offensive is being conducted along Highway 0510 toward a fortified position northwest of Velyka Novosilka. Footage shows, for instance, a Ukrainian tank running out of ammunition and attempting to retreat toward Privolnoye but being destroyed by Russian FPV drones in pursuit. The main goal of this operation appears to be active defense, where the Russian army is advancing on the fortified position to prevent Ukrainian strikes aimed at unblocking the garrison in Velyka Novosilka. These counterattacks are currently being suppressed by Russian assaults from Vremivka toward the stronghold. 2. The second offensive is advancing from Vremivka toward Velyka Novosilka itself. The primary objectives are securing full control over Vremivka, already achieved, taking control of the last remaining supply route, now under Russian control, preventing Ukrainian units from moving from the southern part of Velyka Novosilka to the northern part. Ukrainian soldiers are reportedly attempting to flee the southern area under heavy fire from Russian artillery and drones. The goal of this offensive is to disrupt these movements and potentially encircle a significant number of Ukrainian soldiers, forcing them to surrender. 3. The third offensive is from the northeast. According to Russian experts and sources with contacts on the ground, Ukrainian forces have already abandoned the northeastern part of Velyka Novosilka. Russian forces are reportedly advancing through empty buildings and structures, gradually tightening the encirclement around central Velyka Novosilka. The fourth offensive began today near the settlement of Novosilka. This is the current situation, as reported, in Velyka Novosilka and the surrounding areas. Here, the movement is heading toward the settlement of Novaya Cheretovataya, in the direction of the Mokrie River. It is possible that the Russian army will attempt to cross this river in the near future and begin developing an offensive in what could be called the Zaporozhye direction. We discussed 4 operations currently being conducted by Russian forces. While there might be minor localized pressure from the east, these are the main ones. It is essential to understand that the 3 offensives directed toward the fortified position in the central part of Velyka Novosilka are part of a unified mission to bring Velyka Novosilka under control before Donald Trump's inauguration. However, the offensive from Novi Komar toward Novocheretovo and Neskuchnoye marks the beginning of an entirely new offensive. This situation poses an intriguing question. We must clearly understand that the frontline configuration around Velyka Novosilka had remained relatively unchanged for quite some time. In fact, the Russian army had the resources, manpower and equipment to conclude the battle for Velyka Novosilka weeks ago, shortly after capturing Novi Komar and when Russian forces had already taken control of Storozhevoye, Blagodatnoye, and even Neskuchnoye. However, at that time, the Russian army lacked the strength and means to advance deeper into the Zaporozhye region toward the settlement of Shevchenko after the fall of Velyka Novosilka. Over the past 3 weeks, Russian forces appear to have been regrouping and accumulating resources. The goal was to launch swift, decisive attacks toward Velyka Novosilka, break the front line, and advance as deeply as possible toward the cluster of small settlements in the area. It's worth noting that the final stage of the offensive toward Velyka Novosilka began just a few days ago. Russian sources report that the village of Neskuchnoye fell under control after only 2 days of combat. Then, the village of Vremivka was captured after just 1 day of fighting. Velyka Novosilka is likely to meet the same fate. After these offensives, it is evident that the Russian army still retains substantial reserves, enabling them to advance rapidly. These forces are expected to continue their push, and we may witness what could be described as the flower of Velyka Novosilka, blossoming widely in the South Donetsk direction. Moving on to the Kurakhovskoye direction, the armed forces of the Russian Federation continue delivering fire strikes with aviation and artillery against key supply routes between the settlements of Ulakli and Udakhnoye. The bridge in this area has been under intense fire control for 3 or 4 days, making it nearly impassable. Everything attempting to cross is being destroyed. Currently, we are observing the gradual retreat and withdrawal of Ukrainian units toward Ulakli and, subsequently, toward Constantinople. Heading slightly north, today the Russian Ministry of Defense confirmed in its latest briefing that during combat operations, Russian forces managed to clear the settlement of Petropavlovka, located slightly north of Pokrovskoye. Another day has brought us a significant number of geolocations and new map updates. The vast majority of these updates indicate that over the past 24 hours, the Russian army has once again significantly expanded its zone of control around Udakhnoye and Kotlina. Additionally, reports indicate that the Russian army now controls more than 60% of the settlement of Uspanovka. Footage shows Ukrainian forces launching strikes on Russian units in Uspanovka, and based on this objective control data, maps have been updated to reflect that this area is under Russian control. Along the railway, the Russian army continues to expand its zone of control. Active fighting is ongoing in the southeastern part of Udakhnoye, as well as in the northwestern and eastern parts of Kotlina, near the Pokrovsk mine administration. Initial updates are appearing, and most cartographic services now show that the Russian army controls at least 50% of the Pokrovsk mine administration. Beyond this, control and expansion efforts in Kotlina continue, with reports of further Russian advances along the railway toward the settlement of Pokrovsk itself. Let's take a look at how the map has changed according to various cartographic services over the past 24 hours. This is the map configuration we saw by the end of January 17th, and this is the situation as of the evening of January 18th. Additionally, Ukrainian Verkhovna Rada Deputy Mariana Bezukhla noted that during the night, she reported that the Russian army had entered the settlement of Pokrovsk. This information came late on the evening of January 17th. However, by the end of January 18th, no footage providing objective confirmation or any updates to maps from various cartographic services had been published to corroborate Bezukhla's statement. Nevertheless,